And Malaysia's rural communities are bearing the brunt of COVID-19. Multiple rounds of movement curbs are taking their toll on people. Many are facing difficulties meeting their most basic needs while trying to avoid getting infected. Afifa Arifin explains.
Every day, fisherman Ferdaros Abdul Rahim heads out to the sea while it's still dark out, returning with his haul after the sun is up. The 39-year-old sells his harvest at this jetty on the outskirts of Johor Bahru, a short distance away from Singapore's Tuas Second Link. Business here used to be booming, but these days there's plenty of fish, but no one to sell to.
Masalah COVID ni jadi yang ikan nak jual tak boleh nak jual, kadang tak habis. Kita simpan untuk hari esok, sampai ikan tu tak ada fresh lah. Masalah tu lah COVID sekarang. Kalau macam hari biasa tak ada COVID ni macam 100% kita dapat lah. Kalau macam musim COVID ni tinggal 50% macam itulah.
He says the market is missing its regulars who used to travel here from all over Johor Bahru and even from across the causeway to buy fish. 35-year-old Shahlan Jumaat, who manages the market, says the community has had to band together to stay afloat.
Macam kami daripada tim pasar penekar laut ni bekerjasama antara satu sama lain lah. Macam lepaskan ikan tu terlalu banyak. Dan harga tu turunkan lah. Bermaksudnya selalu kita jual 50, kita pergi ke 30, 35. Janji benda tu lepas saja daripada benda tu buang ke laut.
During the first movement control order, or MCO, last year, the market's owners raised nearly $20,000 to pay for unsold seafood, which is then distributed to the poor and other vulnerable communities. But that proved unsustainable, and these fishermen living in rural communities who struggle to find economic opportunities at home fear for their survival. And it's one that's deeply felt across rural Malaysia. Multiple rounds of MCOs imposed nationwide to curb the spread of COVID-19 have dealt an especially heavy blow to those living in remote villages beyond the city limits. In rural villages like in Tanjung Kupang, residents must travel out more than 10 kilometers in order to find a pharmacy, a petrol station or other items that go beyond their simple daily necessities. Many of them feel that the roadblocks imposed during the movement control order targets them unfairly. They feel stressed that they're not able to move around freely and worry about being fined just because they need to travel across to another district in order to get essential items. Observers say the lockdowns have cut rural communities off even more from the rest of the country, impacting village dwellers economically and psychologically.
The impacts that they feel is not so much from the illness or from the virus, but more because of the movement controls, the economic impacts. That one they feel more, and it's very hard on them because these are B40 community, right? And because the priority is survival. Right? The idea of health and having to lock down for everybody's good is a little bit hard for them to navigate and to understand because they will struggle themselves first.
Economic relief packages have been launched by the authorities both at the federal and state level. But Dr. Serena says more work has to be done to ensure that aid reaches people in rural areas, many of whom struggle with technology and who now have to grapple with a growing sense of isolation even as they struggle to eke out a living. Afifa Arifin, CNA, Johor.